Hello, welcome to my channel, The Real Super Sam. Today is a brand new list video and I hope you enjoy. Oh heck yeah, this video is going to be going over my list on my top 10 best Batman villains. There are many to choose from, but I would say this list is pretty solid. Personally, even though Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, Batman has a bigger and better rogues gallery. All of his villains are unique in one way, either because of their powers, history, or characteristics. All of these villains have great stories and histories, and I'm excited to show you guys my list, and so here we go. Number 10. The Ventriloquist. Ventriloquist is a great character to me, a villain to laugh and be terrified, and maybe even pity. There are 3 ventriloquists and I like them all, but especially the first and best one, Arnold Wesker, and his puppet, his split personality, the person he's always wanted to be, a tough no-nonsense mob boss. He becomes that in his dummy Scarface. I didn't know until a bit ago, but Wesker's parents were mob bosses, and there's another reason he is a crime lord. I hope we start getting more with ventriloquists like in the video games. The Batman 2004 version of him is my favorite one in media. In his Reform episode, it did a crazy thing, basically giving him like 3 personalities, each unaware of the other, kind of like the Judge in Batman Taz. Overall, I love seeing this guy show up. Number 9. Poison Ivy. For this list, it was between her and Ra's al Ghul. Both are eco-terrorists and aren't afraid to end human lives all over the world. I just like Poison Ivy more because she's been around longer, been in more media appearances, and she is a little more of a complex character because she can be sympathetic. She can also have really cool action scenes with giant plans and schemes where she has control of a whole forest. I also enjoyed the smaller schemes of hers, where she is just a beautiful woman and kills with a poison kiss. Number 8. Penguin. The first time I saw Penguin, it was more goofy and cartoony. Then I read a lot of his comics, and yeah, he can get dark. We don't have the cartoony Penguin with the weapon umbrellas anymore, and I like that version more than the, let's say, New 52 Batman Returns type of Penguin. Oswald Cobblepot's family was one of the founding families of Gotham. Over the years, his family fell and he turned into a life of crime, but then after a while decided to play it smart and do crime behind the curtain with illegal trading and posing to the public as a legit businessman, owner of the Iceberg Lounge. Surprisingly, Penguin can get dark and do unspeakable actions against enemies and past friends just to stay ahead. I really like the Penguin because growing up, he was always put down and underestimated, and by determination, he became the crime lord of Gotham City. I think the TV show Gotham showed that very well. Number 7. Clayface. Yep, Sam was on my top 10 Spider-Man villains list, so it's kind of obvious now. I love villains with shape-changing powers, so Clayface definitely is one of my favorite Batman villains. Once again, I like the first one, Basil Karlo, when he gets powers the most. The second one, Matt Hagen, is a close second. I love the other two as well. The first one is my favorite because this guy's obsessed with movies and theater, so when he gets powers, he gets to be the best, I guess, chameleon in the real world. I put him above Penguin because his best stories are so interesting and dark. One of my favorites is the one on screen, where these people who worship Basil Karlo because of his old movies ask to be killed by suffocating in Clayface's body. In live action, he would make for great action scenes for a movie. Just the creativity with the character who is obsessed with show business and has shape-changing powers has a lot of potential, but it's almost never used. Number 6. The Riddler. Oh man, I love the Riddler. I find him so entertaining and even funny to read and watch. Edward Nygma is his real name, and the Adam West 1966 show summed it up perfectly. A riddle a day keeps the Riddler away. The Riddler commits these crimes mostly for himself and for attention, to show the world that he's the smartest man alive, and specifically smarter than Batman. I like to think of myself as a good problem solver. I play all the LEGO games and have done every Riddler challenge in all 4 Arkham games, and I hope he returns in Gotham Knights. The perfect depiction of him was in the Arkham games. I don't get why people hate him so much in them. Someone you love to hate, I guess. I find his challenges enjoyable since most are pretty easy and they give you a lot of XP points. One thing to say is I don't think Riddler should be a physical threat at all against Batman. It should be comical if he even tries to. His brain is the thing he cherishes the most and is all about. Number 5. The Joker. The Clown Prince of Crime. Joker is probably on 99% of people's list, and maybe even higher. To me, Joker is just pure madness and evil, almost like how Doomsday from Superman is a pure strength weapon who just is a creature like that. The Joker, no one knows his origin story, not even himself, and all he does is create chaos for laughs. I remember my first time viewing all the different versions of Joker, the movies, the comics, and the animated stuff. He can be interpreted in so many different universes and starts in countless stories. And being Batman's greatest enemy, being the greatest supervillain of all time, how could he not be on the list? How do you plan to stop a guy who doesn't care about anything monetary? His best schemes prove that everyone can have one bad day, and the Joker not having a definitive origin story makes him scarier because we never know what bad day drove him into madness. Number 4. Killer Croc. The second most sympathetic and complex villain in Batman's rogues gallery. Don't worry, the first one is on this list too. Killer Croc is the villain I see want to succeed the most. A man born with a condition that worsened as he grew up, turning him into a giant human crocodile. Growing up with a rare skin condition which turned him into a human giant crocodile, getting him abused by everyone around him growing up. Starting in his first appearances, he was a much more entertaining and interesting Batman rogue than most. His history is why he's a top rogue, how he was almost like Bane, a smart, strong, new guy in Gotham, but then he became more monstrous and unfortunately written to be a little bit more stupid. But when Killer Croc's feelings and the tragic side of being a physical monster is shown to us, those are his best stories, some of Batman's greatest stories. One thing I want to point out here is Killer Croc is not DC's Lizard from Spider-Man. The character is Man-Bat for DC. Honestly, lots don't appreciate Killer Croc as much as they should. He is one of the greats in shows and games and especially in the DC universe. Number 3. TwoFace. Now this is a Batman rogue, TwoFace, half good, half evil, and a villain many know about. I would say he's the second most popular Batman enemy, second only to Joker. I've always loved it when Two-Face's crimes have to go with the number 2 being his trope and robberies. District Attorney Harvey Dent was Gotham's White Knight, opposite of Batman in The Dark Knight, until dark demons from his past came back into his life to haunt him at the worst time, as in court when Maroni threw fast-acting acid into his face, scarring half of his body and causing Harvey Dent to snap into the rogue Two-Face, and now he and Batman square off all the time, representing the best and worst of Gotham. My favorite moments with Two-Face are the insane scenes where he is arguing with himself, like Harvey Dent persona versus the Two-Face side, pure good and pure evil in one body, coming out at the same time during scenes like that are cool to me. I personally also like it when Two-Face does good things, like what Harvey Dent used to do, and I'm super excited to read it when Two-Face does super horrific actions when the coin lands scarred side up. Number 2. Mr. Freeze. Victor Freeze went from a villain called Mr. Zero, who was pure comedy, to a man who unfortunately, accidentally, was in a lab accident that turned him into Mr. Freeze. The two main things that changed Mr. Freeze in his history was his premiere in Batman 1966, episode 7 and 8, and Batman Taz, episode 14, Heart of Ice, because this turned Victor Freeze into a tragic character committing all these crimes to cure his sick wife, Nora. Mr. Freeze is super awesome to me because he previously was just Dr. Victor Freeze, a man deeply in love, when he worked hard and obsessed to save his wife's life, leading to an unfair tragedy that turned him into a monster. Now, he just tries to still save his wife's life, but now with more opportunity since he has made himself cold weapons and armor. Comparing the comics and the Freeze's media appearances, his media appearances are much more beloved and superior to his comic lines, which, what other villain can say that? And, one little thing, does Scott Snyder hate Mr. Freeze? I mean, first there was turning Mr. Freeze into a creepy, messed up kid, and then into a stalker like a doll in the New 52. And then there's Gotham Knights, which I get we haven't seen much of, but it seems like he's more Batman and Robin Mr. Freeze than in the Arkham games where he was more Batman Taz. I think Mr. Freeze is the most sympathetic villain ever, an A-list supervillain. And that's why I say he's one of the best and one of my favorites. Also, I like wintertime more than summertime in my life. And the number 1 Batman villain to me is the Scarecrow. Not only is Jonathan Crane the Scarecrow my favorite Batman villain, he is my favorite supervillain in all of comics. He was bullied in school for looking super skinny like a scarecrow. That sent him to become obsessed with fear and use it as a weapon. As an adult, he became a villain named Scarecrow and scared and attacked people without any fear gas. Then he had fear gas later in his history. The second most powerful chemical weapon in the DC universe is his fear gas. With the Scarecrow, he, in his own sick way, is trying to help his victims by making them not afraid of their fears anymore, by facing them. Another key dynamic with him and Batman is Batman inspires fear in criminals, he punishes the guilty, but Jonathan Crane can literally insert artificial fear, and, if you didn't know, Scarecrow's greatest fear is bats. Yeah, he fights Batman, his greatest enemy, symbolizes his greatest fear. This villain ultimately looks so cool. I love villains who can warp the hero's mind. It makes the conflicts and fights so unpredictable and have so many different ways of using them. Well, at least for Scarecrow, the fear toxin. And because of that, there's a part of me that wishes we could have seen the sequel to the movie Batman and Robin called Batman Triumphant, where he was the main villain with callbacks to his first appearance being a school teacher, specifically one of Dick Grayson's teachers. I think in one script he also created Man-Bat or something like that. Anyway, also in real life I basically look like a Scarecrow, so I guess I can relate to him being so skinny. And those 10 to me are the top 10 greatest Batman villains. I'm really looking forward to reading your lists and comments. I had a great time making this video. I loved it, and definitely a long time coming. Before I go, I want to mention Bane. He would be number 11 on this list. The man who feared the Bat of Gotham growing up, using his strength and brains to literally and figuratively break the Batman. I think Bane can be seen as a little relatable. Being a man who worked and persevered so hard just to survive and then eventually complete his main goal. People have to stop thinking of him as just a big dumb brute who can't talk or he talks weird. This guy could be one of the greatest DC villains ever to be created. He actually, I guess he kind of is, but he only has like 2 or 3 great stories, so much potential, which is why he is very high if you wanted to make a super big top 50 Batman's list for me. Also, he's the character in Injustice 2 I leveled up the most. And I realize, yes, the majority of the villains here can be seen as sympathetic, but hey, I think that's what makes a great villain, someone you can relate a bit to, and a lot of Batman rogues can be like that. And yep, with that all said, thank you so much for watching. Bye guys, and have a good day.